Welcome to Talking Halo. It's Derek Ciapala with my co-host, my partners in crime, Nate Green and Jared Timmons back. Man, we missed you, Jared.
That was
We
the
missed
first
you.
podcast. That was the first podcast I missed in like 5 years. So
Has it been that long? Really?
I
Five
don't know if
years?
I don't know if we've been
It's been a
doing this for 5 years, but it's been a while.
well, no, we started in 2019. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, 2019. This will be our sixth season.
Minus episode 1 through 30 of the podcast. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I've been on every other podcast.
So all that said, we're here midweek. Um, News kind of buzzing around today, rumors flying. The big name for us is Taylor Ward. Taylor Ward rumored to be on his way to Pittsburgh.
Good
Pittsburgh.
40, good 42 reference there.
Yeah, had to throw in there. Seriously though, I'm not sure Pittsburgh makes sense for him in terms of Pittsburgh's not a contender. You would think that, but here we are, guys. What about the rumors of Taylor Ward to Pittsburgh, Jared?
Oh, do you want to know the rumor or do you want to know the facts?
Okay, well, let's give the was well what yeah, let's flesh for the listener who doesn't know what was the actual rumor.
The Pittsburgh Pirates have checked in on Taylor Ward, the baseball
Checked
player, not the
in
writer.
on Taylor Ward, the baseball player, not the writer. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That was
So,
and the reality is,
um, a lot of teams have checked in on Taylor Ward. Yeah, so yeah, a lot of teams have checked in on Taylor Ward, and I've been given authorization to say it. But it's not nothing imminent by any means. There's nothing even remotely close. It's teams seeing who's available, seeing what the prices are, and seeing really kind of what the market looks like for certain players. And I'm sure teams have checked in on other players for the Angels as well. I mean, you can pick a name out of a hat, and I'd say, yeah, probably is, including somebody like Mike Trout or even possibly Anthony Rendon. So, yeah, I'm sure that every team is checked in on almost every Angel right now. And so, yeah, it is funny that that came out today. It's funny that names came out with it as well, but there's definitely nothing imminent by any means. And the word from the Angels is a lot of teams have checked in on Taylor Ward, not just the Pittsburgh Pirates. So, to answer your next question, do the Pirates make sense? I don't know. I
they
mean,
don't,
they've
but
got, well, Taylor Ward has
I
another,
think
what,
they
two
make a
years
lot of
of
sense,
control?
actually.
Another year of control.
He's got 2.5 years of control. They've got a very young pitching staff that is very, very good. They've got probably the best pitching prospect in baseball with Paul Skeens. You have Jared Jones, who's taking that next step forward. They're only 3 games out of a wild card spot right now, too. And their big offensive need is outfield help. And they have 2.5 years of cheap control. They don't usually spend too much money. So what's the thing the Angels need? Pitching. What's the thing that they have? What Pittsburgh has a lot of pitching. Like, it kind of makes sense for Pittsburgh that they could get rid of a pitcher or two and get a better offensive piece because they need offense, and they're going to get them for 2.5 years. Plus, you're going to have Paul Skeens take that next step. You're going to have Jared Jones take that next step. Mitch Keller signed for a couple more years. Yeah, they're pretty loaded when it comes to the pitching staff. Now it's just figuring out their offense, kind of centered around Brian Reynolds and O'Neill Cruz.
I'm only gonna go back. Is there any kind of rumor on what's going back? Well, what was going to go back from Pittsburgh to like any
Uh,
kind of rumor at all?
I mean, obviously their names. The Angels did like Mitch Jebb in the draft in 2023. In all honesty, that was a name that was thrown around. But as far as like names, no, it's just phone, just checking in on certain players. I can elaborate and give my opinion on who I think
Okay.
what would make sense in a Taylor Ward trade, and it's if you look at the Pirates top 30. It's not Bubba Chandler. It's not Tamar Johnson, and it's not Anthony Solometo, and it's probably not Thomas Harrington. It's probably somebody after that, which Mitch Jebb makes a lot of sense. Shortstop. The Angels again did like him in the draft. And then probably somebody down in the lower minors who throws very, very hard. A Jose Marte type of guy, as well. So You can agree, you can disagree with who I think is going to go that way, but there's nothing imminent in this. It's just a rumor. It's teams checking in, and I don't even know if the Pirates really knew that they talked to the Angels. It sounded like so. A lot of teams checked in on Taylor Ward, and I don't think they get back anybody who is, again, Bubba Chandler, their top prospect. Paul Skeens, another top prospect. Not
He's not
happening
prospect
tomorrow.
anymore.
I know Tamar and Anthony Solometto. I just don't think any of those names come back for Taylor Ward. I really don't.
All right, so the reason why I'm saying Pittsburgh doesn't make sense is Pittsburgh is just now really kind of starting to make sense on how they're rebuilding. I mean, they're doing what we wish the Angels would have done. Okay, they kind of tried, they muddled around a little bit, and they just now sort of kind of got the boat right with where they're going, which is pitching. They focus a lot on pitching, hence Paul Skeens and the other guys they got coming up. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me right now for them to say, hey, let's go ahead and start moving to those pitching prospects when they're just now getting a core there. And that's why I would say, yes, you're right. If the place they need is outfield, but with a year and a half of control
Two and
to
a
go
half.
up that pitching core, I just don't see them doing it.
Well, and I don't think you're gonna, if you're Pittsburgh, you're not giving up Jared Jones, you're not giving up Paul Skeens, you're not giving up Mitch Keller. I don't even think they'd give up Quinn Priester in this deal. So you're probably giving, and you're probably not giving up Bubba Chandler. Like, there's a chance Anthony Solimento would be a name that they would give up, I think. Just because he's lower on their list. He's like their third best pitching. Actually, I guess you could say he's their sixth best pitching prospect. Um, if you're counting Jones and Skeens and Priester and guys like that. So he would make some sense for Pittsburgh to give up just because he probably doesn't fit in the rotation. And like I said, they need offense, and they get 2.5 years of Taylor Ward. They get this year plus 2 more years. Like, he kind of fits in with that Brian Reynolds is 29 years old. Taylor Ward's 30 years old. Like, he kind of fits in with their offense when they would become like ready to go. So I think it makes sense for Pittsburgh, but there's a lot of teams that make sense for. I think Seattle makes a lot of sense, and I've always pushed Seattle with this trade. There's just a lot of teams that could make sense. You could see a San Francisco or a San Diego make their name, throw their hat in the ring.
Would Seattle
Heck,
make it in interdivision trade though?
I don't see why not. Honestly, we've seen teams make in-division trades. Would Seattle, the thing is, would Seattle and Jerry DiPoto be willing to move with the Angels? We haven't seen that happening. Jerry makes a lot of trades. We have never seen him make a trade with the Angels. And I know Jared will allude to that because that's Jared's favorite thing to throw out there. But like, we've seen the Angels make trades in the division before. They traded with Oakland a couple years back in the Tommy La Stella trade. You've seen them make trades in division. It's just got to make sense for both teams. Like, the Angels aren't just going to give Taylor Ward away just because Seattle calls. But if both sides are feeling that they've won the trade, then like, I don't see why you wouldn't make a trade in division, especially if Taylor Ward doesn't fit your window.
I mean, they're going to have different windows for sure, right?
You would hope.
So, let's see. Does Taylor get moved? I mean, now you're hearing more and more buzz about it. The reason why I asked that question, Jared, is because last show we kind of dismissed the idea right now that he would be moved, didn't we? Like,
we said that he makes sense to move, but we don't see the Angels actually moving
yeah,
him.
yeah. And now with there being more buzz around him, which to me would raise the price a bit, or at least go more to an Angels liking, does it make it more likely, Jared?
I mean, it's all about Perry showing face right now and what Perry wants to do with arguably his job on the line, right? Like, does Perry want to rebuild and be like, well, this failed, and arguably put his job on the line that way? Or what what does Perry do? I don't know. I don't see Taylor Ward getting traded because he's got years left. Same thing with Luis Renifo or that core group of guys that you guys I know talked about last time. I just don't see an actual rebuild happening. I'd love to see that. I really would. I'd love to see them get pieces. And we talked about this last year with the Shohei Ohtani thing, like we've talked about the last couple of years at the deadline. And, if history repeats itself, it'll be interesting to see if they even trade a guy like Carlos Estevez.
Ooh. So you think no matter what, they're pretty much staying pat, which is
I don't
what
think
we've
they're
been
going to stay.
hearing.
I don't think they're going to stand pat, but I think that certain pieces are going to get moved, and I don't think it's like massive returns. Like, what does a Luis Garcia return you? Probably not a lot. Matt Moore and I don't know what his ERA is. He at least has a 4 ERA this year, maybe to 5, right? What does that
Yes.
return you? Plus the amount of money he's owed, probably not a whole lot. I mean, there's a lot of guys on this team right now where it's like that doesn't get you a big any return at all. Maybe a 23-year-old kid that's in Arizona right now, but other than that, a lot of these guys aren't bringing back too much return. Brandon Drury, what's Brandon Drury, who's batting under 200, I think this year, coming off an injury? What does that return you? Angels don't have too many of those pieces. I don't know if they move Tyler Anderson either. I think that it's a smart move to move Tyler Anderson, and get that off the books with him being at his highest right now. He's an all-star and everything, but I don't know. I don't see it. I really don't.
I do see Tyler moving. He's no young buck. They're never going to get him better than this. He's the one I would say that
Has
makes the
to
most
move.
sense, huh?
He has to move. He's the
He's
one
gotta
guy who
move.
has to move.
And quite frankly, I think he deserves the opportunity. By the way, he's the one who's pitched the way he's pitched in light of all this, and he's no spring chicken. Move him for his sake, for crying out loud. But I mean, they gotta move him. It's not as irresponsible as not trading Shohei last year, which was incredibly irresponsible. We talked about that, but I think that would be pretty irresponsible to not take advantage of that. Anybody else that we need to catch Jared on Nate? The question?
No, I think Rengifo going down kind of hurts. Hopefully he comes back before the deadline and can prove that he can play, because there are going to be some teams that are going to at least want to see if the Angels will pick up the phone for Luis Rengifo, because the Yankees are going to want to at least see if the Angels will pick up the phone. The Dodgers will want to at least see if the Angels will pick up the phone. There's going to be teams that are going to want a guy who could play second, third, possibly short. And he's hitting, he's leading the league in average. So there's going to be teams that are going to want him too. I don't think I hope they move him, but it doesn't look like that's the way things are going to go.
He's under 30. He's 27 years old. He's still
a year and a
in his
half.
prime
You
now.
have you might have the argument of extending him too. David Fletcher type of contract.
And that worked out well.
I mean,
if you look at the underlying numbers with Luis Rengifo, like, you sell him. You sell him now. Like, that's great. He's leading the league in average. But if you look at everything else, like, there's nothing that jumps off the page with, oh my gosh, you have to keep this guy. He's played a below average third base. He plays a average, maybe a slightly above average second base. And all he's doing is he's hitting singles, right? Like, his OPS is under 700, I believe. Yes, he's leading the league in average. Yes, he has 20 stolen bases, but like, the stolen bases don't really, it's not that big of a deal anymore. Like, anyone can steal 20 bags. His OPS is 800, excuse me. So he's hitting decently, but he's got 6 homers, 25 RBIs. He's hitting 315. Like, those numbers don't really jump off the page at you. And how much does he get paid? Like, I'm thinking he gets paid Chris Taylor money. I don't think he signs a David Fletcher contract.
Jared, thoughts on Rengifo?
do you get something back better than what Luis Rengifo is right now, or in the future? Like,
Yes.
probably not.
Yes.
So who are you getting back?
Then do it.
Exactly. You do it because there's a year and a half left of it. If you're trading him next year, no, you're absolutely not getting anything better than what Luis Rengifo is right now. But I will say this, and I will say this a lot going into the trade deadline. Teams get desperate. The Yankees are going to get desperate. They are. I
They're
guarantee
desperate
you.
now.
Yes, I guarantee you, Aaron Boone and Steinbrenner are sick and tired of hearing, why didn't we get better in the offseason? Why didn't we replace LeMahieu? Why didn't we replace Glaber in the offseason? Because this is unacceptable. This is New York Yankee baseball. New York Yankee baseball does not have three guys in the lineup hitting under 200. The Dodgers are going to get very desperate here at the trade deadline. They cannot go into the postseason with the roster they have right now. They cannot have 6 through 9 hitting with a WRC plus under 100. It just can't happen because of all the money that they spent bringing in Yamamoto, Otani, re-signing Kershaw, like all these things that they did. If they go into the postseason with 6, 7, 8, 9 with a WRC plus under 100 and they get bounced in the first round, everyone is going to have their butts on the line. Everyone. So those teams are going to get desperate. And you know what? It's a seller's market. It's a really good time to take advantage of some desperate teams. Think about Seattle. How many years left does Jerry Dipoto have? This is his last one. What has he proven so far? That's great. You've gotten to one postseason run. You lost to Houston. You got to show more than like what they've done. They made the big trade for Kalenic. You could say he swung and missed. J-Rod is only going downhill based on the numbers. His numbers have gotten worse. Like, he's got to make a move to get them to the postseason, especially knowing that the Houston Astros were back 10 and a half games at one point this year. If they don't make the playoffs this year, Jerry's job's on the line, right? Like, these teams are going to get desperate, and the Angels have pieces that work really well for desperate teams. Luis Rengifo works really well for those desperate teams. Taylor Ward works really well for those desperate teams. Look at a team like Houston. Their window is closing. They're going to get desperate too. They could say, you know what, Tyler Anderson makes a lot of sense. We're sick and tired of running, some AAA who's got a 4.5 ERA in AAA out there every 2 weeks because everyone's hurt in that rotation. Like, all these teams, there's going to be teams obviously that aren't desperate. Like, Milwaukee's not desperate. Milwaukee's playing with house money right now. They trade everybody away and they're like, hey, we're in first place. It's easy.
In a weak division.
Exactly. So they're playing with house money. They're not desperate. Philadelphia, they're not desperate. Like, yeah, their window's kind of closing, but like, they're dominating the East right now. That is very impressive what they've done. They will make a move, but it won't be out of desperation where they're like, oh man, we've got to get the best player. They're just going to be in a spot where we've got to get the right player instead of the best player. Where you look at Seattle, the Yankees, the Dodgers, you could even see Toronto get super desperate if they get back in this. Texas could get super desperate if they get back in this, which they're only 6 games out. Like, everyone's talking like Texas is 15 games out of this thing. They get on a hot streak. They're only 6 games out of the division. So I don't know. I think desperate teams are really good for the Angels. The Angels it's a seller's market. And if they do things correctly, it makes a lot of sense to move anyone and everyone, except for, like we talked about, Logan O'Hoppe, Zach.
Yeah, that core. Now, this weekend's the draft. Jared, this is your bread and butter. This is like your Super Bowl. What are you looking for this draft?
I don't know at the moment. I mean, I do know, but I don't know.
Oh, come on. I built you up. And your first words are, I don't know at the moment. Come on, dude.
It depends on it depends on what happens before the Angels pick, unfortunately, at the moment. Like, I would love to see the Angels get Travis Bazzana. It's not going to happen. Like, it's not going to happen. Now, anybody else, it could happen. I truly do believe it. I think that there's a chance that Charlie Condon's there. I think that there's a chance that Chase Burns is there. I think there's a chance that Jack Cogliano's there. It's a little chance, but there's definitely a chance that it happens. And the MLB draft has been extremely weird the last couple of years, especially the first round and how teams are using money. And the Angels finally have some money. So it wouldn't surprise me if it was Trey Savage. If everybody was on the board still, it wouldn't surprise me if Charlie Condon was there. It wouldn't surprise me if the Angels, oddly enough, passed on Chase Burns. if he was there. Like anything could happen. But there will be good players on the board for the Angels. Now, do they pick the right guy? That's the next question. And I'm I'm hoping that they do. They've done a okay job of drafting in the first round. They've done a good job after the first round, but in the first round they've done just an okay job. I think, Zach Neto was a good pick. Sam Bachman's been hurt, can't say that. Nolan Shanuel is still extremely young, and you moved him through the system extremely quickly. And you don't know exactly what he is still. And so yeah, there's a lot on the board. I'll say this: if there's one guy that I kind of don't want right now, it's probably James Tibbs. Which means the Angels will probably draft James Tibbs because I said this about a couple players in the past. Please don't draft this guy, and they went and did. But good news, it's not all about what happens in the first round. It happens to be what happens in later rounds too. I mean, the Angels' top 100 prospect went in the 11th round a couple years ago. Caden Dana, 11th round pick. So you don't know. Chase Silseth was a 12th round pick, I think. He's pitching up in the majors. Ben Joyce pitching up in the majors, 3rd round pick. So you just don't know what's going to happen, and the Angels haven't done a horrible job of developing their pitchers. So I'm excited to see what happens. And yeah, it's an exciting it is a very exciting week and weekend for a lot of those players too.
So we'll get into the draft this weekend a little bit deeper than this, because kind of just touching it a little bit here. Nate, any closing thoughts relating to the trade market, the draft this weekend, ready to close up shop?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Jared one question that he couldn't beat around the bush with. All right, Jared. I got to get him in trouble. That's my job. All right. Would you like to? There are two parts to this question. One, would you like to see the Angels go underslot with the first round pick? Because that's a thing where you don't have to say a player's name. You don't have to be like, oh, I hope they draft A or I hope they draft B. Would you be excited or upset if the Angels go underslot with the first pick? The second one, would you be excited or upset if the Angels took based off of need, or would you be more excited if they took best player available?
So the first question is if I
Don't beat
know
around
for
the bush, just answer it.
if I know for a fact that Caleb Culpepper is going to be there in the second, then I underslot and give Culpepper his money. That's totally fine. If it's a high schooler as well, if it's one of those high school pitchers, if for some strange reason Connor Griffin is there in the second round, like they cut a deal with Griffin to get him in the second, and just flip spots with him, okay, that's fine. There are certain guys for sure. But
the odds on those two things happening are very slim.
Exactly.
Let's play realistic here. Connor Griffin's not going to be available in the second, most likely.
I would prefer the Angels to draft the best player available, because I think the best player available at 8 is better than at least this year is better than splitting your money. Okay. At least this year. I think that like if a guy like Chase Burns is there, you're not getting the amount of productivity at the major league level out of 2 guys that you're getting out of Chase Burns. And I think that's a fair statement to say, right?
I agree. I just wanted to hear you say that out loud.
Yeah.
And then the other thing,
there's a legitimate chance that the Angels underslot weirdly and save like $500,000 and pick a guy like James Tibbs or somebody. Christian, I don't know if Christian Moore is really an underslot anymore because of the World Series he had. So I would this year, if again it comes down to who's there, but if there is a weird situation that one of those big guys is there, or even like a guy like Brandon Montgomery or just the best player on your board is one of those top 8 guys, I would probably take him. I'd probably take him over, unless you had a crazy good idea where you're getting 3 Caden Danas later on, right? Like somehow you're spending $1 million on 3 high schoolers in the 11th, 12th, and 13th round, something crazy like that. That'd be fun, but I don't think it happens.
And then the other question: if Nick Kurtz is there and they take Nick Kurtz, will you be upset because they take a position that they took last year, or would you just be like, you know what, he was the best player on the board, that's fine? Because these things matter. It's a possibility.
It makes the Angels a lot. It makes the Angels kind of the laughing stock because you drafted a first baseman last year, and now all of a sudden you're like, well, we're gonna take Nick Kurtz. Now Nick Kurtz is a better player than Nolan Shanuel is, and is probably going to be a better player at first base than Nolan Shanuel. So if you can find a way to move Nolan Shanuel to a corner position, corner outfield spot or something like that, sure, do it. But I don't think I think that if Kurtz is there, I think that they pass on him because Perry doesn't want to look bad. And Perry and staff doesn't want to look bad
I
by drafting
disagree,
him.
dude. This is baseball, not football. This is,
I
mean,
know, but
this is, and
This is
and
why I asked the question for this fun right here.
This is an era. Yeah, you wait until we have a couple minutes left in the recording to do this too.
I had
We have
fun
to
with it.
lead in with this on Saturday. I just want to throw this out there, just to, I guess, set the table for Saturday. Is this? We have one player, one right now in the top 100. Okay, now I want to kind of layer this and say we had a couple guys that come up the last year or so who probably would be in top 100 if the Angels didn't bring them up early. Nonetheless, won the top 100. It's not a deep farm system. It's got a lot of holes, and it's lacking star power. I think you 100%, even if it's the same position, you go get best player available. Especially if it's a power hitting corner infielder.
I don't disagree with that. I don't think it's for Nick Kurtz. I think if Cogliano's there, they would do it because you can say that he's a pitcher, but I think it makes the org look bad. As bad as that sounds, I really do. And I don't agree with it. I would take Nick Kurtz. I really would, but I don't know if the Angels do.
I don't
Even though
think it
he
makes him
is
look bad, dude. I don't think not in today's age. Not in today's, or how about this? If you're in the NFL, and to me the Bears looked bad by going off and drafting Fields a couple years ago, and then now giving up on him and going for Caleb Williams. They look bad to me. All right, that's football. Baseball, it's a totally different animal.
I mean, here's what I do. If Kurtz is there, I take Kurtz, and I'm like, hey, Nolan, you're gonna play at the major league level, but come spring, if Kurtz beats you, he's got the spot, and we're gonna put you back down in AAA to develop more. I know he's on the clock and everything like that, and you're wasting his time down there, but I think they made a mistake by bringing him up first and foremost. But yeah,
Yeah.
if it came down to it, I think that if Kurtz is there, the draft is a little bit weird, and I think there are other players there that they would probably take over Kurtz anyways. If Cogliano's there, the draft got really weird, and I'm not missing on him because he's a guy that is a 30 home run guy that we're talking about being an all-star every single year at first base. Like that's the type of guy he is. So yeah, it's a fun question. I appreciate this, Nate, but my answer will remain the same. I think that I would do it because I like Nick Kurtz a lot more than I liked Nolan Shanuel in the draft last year, but also at the same time, I think that it makes the Angels look bad that they drafted back-to-back first basemen and are now giving up on Nolan Shanuel because that's my thought. If it was another shortstop, if it was a shortstop, it would be different. If it was a shortstop, they went back-to-back shortstops, we wouldn't even have this conversation.
Of course.
But since it's a first baseman and they only play first base, it gets.
It's just hard to say that like you're going to make a pick of lesser value because you're scared of looking bad rather than doing what's best for you in the org. And you can sell it that way of like, hey, you know what? We got a guy last year that he hasn't worked out the way we thought. So we went and we got the best player available.
Like that is the most Angels thing that they can do.
You can't look any worse than you did last year trading prospects before the deadline.
And then letting those guys go.
You can't look any worse than you already did. I don't see that. They obviously don't care about looking bad because look what they did. I just want to point this out as well. To me, an easy explanation is, listen, we're going to move Shanwell out into the corner outfield position when Taylor Ward gets traded. And we're going to take our guy. That's how once one way you can explain it out. All right, we got to go. But if you want more of a discussion about how this roster is going to break down, get on for our pre-draft show this weekend. And then, of course, Sunday the draft. For the entire team here, we'll see you. We're out.